I'll now hand the program over to our moderator, Vicki Janowski, who is the editor of Greater Wilmington Business Journal. Vicki?
Thank you. Well, good morning. Good morning, Dr. Lee and Dr. Sartarelli. Thank you for being here. Obviously, you have a lot of people interested in hearing what you guys have planned. So school is back in, and the timing's worked out where we have 2 new leaders that came on board this summer for Wilmington's higher education institutions. So today we're going to hear a little bit more from them, especially if you haven't had the chance to talk with them both. Hear about their goals for those institutions, hear about where they see the roles of the college and the university playing in economic development, and ultimately what their thoughts and perspectives are on education and those changing climate of education in our country. So to start off, Amanda Lee was named president of Cape Fear Community College this summer. She started there in 2003 as an instructor after having taught at several institutions, including Texas A&M, and she even taught communications at UNCW for a while. She moved up into administration roles at CFCC, served as Vice President of Instructional Services, and became interim president after the resignation of Ted Spring at the beginning of this year. Dr. Jose Zito Sartarelli also started in his position this summer. He came to Wilmington from West Virginia, where he was Dean of the College of Business and Economics at West Virginia University. There he was also the school's first ever Chief Global Officer, and some of the efforts he worked on there was increasing the business school's enrollment, fundraising. A PhD program in business administration was launched, an online Masters of Business Administration program. He had a focus of increasing international student applications, and if you've had a chance to talk with him since he's been here or heard some of the media interviews, you'll see that some of these sound familiar as priorities for UNCW as well. Before his higher education career, he also worked for decades in the private sector in the international pharmaceutical field. So just to start us off, as by way of introduction, how about we just ask you, why did you want this job? Dr. Lee, you want to start?
Why did I want the job?
Why president?
I haven't wanted it since I've had it on some days. It has been a wonderful opportunity. It was a very unexpected opportunity, and I have certainly enjoyed the privilege. It's been very humbling, and I could not be more proud to be doing what I'm doing.
Dr. Sartarelli?
Well, I think once I decided to retire from J&J in March of 2010, I have a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who was the dean of the business school at Ohio State. And she also was the vice chairman of J&J in her past life. And so she kept encouraging me to go into higher education and say, look, you've got a PhD. I think you're going to be well received, and so on and so forth. And the opportunity came up, and I applied for West Virginia University, and I spent 5 wonderful years there. And then as I was going through that process and finishing up my stint at WVU, this opportunity came open. One of the recruiters called me up, and they said, this is a wonderful university and up and coming with all kinds of great students and professors, and you should apply. And I applied, and but all in all, the reason why I reinvented myself from a corporate executive for 30 years in 3 major companies, global companies, to now academia was mostly to give back. I wanted to impart back to young men and women in this country, in this state now, all the things I've learned about the world and in life, and so that's the reason.
So when we talk about your transition and coming here to Wilmington, in your case, Dr. Sartarelli, we do have to kind of address that, while movements in higher education is not uncommon and often happens in the summertime, the circumstances when you guys both came into your roles happened out of issues that played out very publicly, board clashes. In CFCC's case, there's still pending litigation. And for both of you, I'm kind of curious of how do you step in as a leader of your institutions with that in the background and working on how to come in and kind of reshape the story there?
I think for us it actually was relatively simple. And we service over 9,500 students. Our focus is the students. We focused on the students, and we haven't stopped doing that.
Yeah, I don't look. I'm all about the future. and I'm not about the past. I think the past is the past, and whatever happened to previous administration, et cetera, it's not worth dwelling on it. I think the fundamentals of UNCW is terrific. We have the third highest SAT in the state after Chapel Hill and NC State. We're very proud of that. We just got ranked number 10th best in value in the country when we compare tuition paid and quality of education delivered. And also, by the way, we also got ranked number 15th most beautiful campus, coastal campus in the United States. Number 1 was Pepperdine and Malibu Beach, and we could not beat that one. So I think we're all about the future, and I do believe strongly that the best years of UNCW are ahead of us.
So then, in looking ahead, what would be 3 specific things that you would look to do your first year at UNCW?
Well, let me kind of share a little bit about the vision. We're in the process with faculty and staff developing a strategic plan, and we want to finish it hopefully by the end of this year, early next year. There's 3 things which are very important for us. One is I want to make this university even better in everything we do, both improving, incrementally as well as breakthrough improvement. We want to get a lot more engaged with the community and the southeastern region. In fact, I'm embarking on a 12-county tour soon to visit all the counties that surrounds us, which is important. And the third one is globalization. I think we want to become a lot more global. We have a great program, a study abroad program. We send almost 1,000 students overseas every year. But I'd like to bring more students in. We got about 350 students only from international. We should have a lot more of that. Location is destiny. We are a cosmopolitan city. We're right on the ocean. All the great capitals of the world are on the ocean, and Wilmington have that, that destination. So we want to become a lot more global.
How about for CFCC? What are some specific things coming up?
Well, you already heard that we've got the center that's opening up, so that's taken a lot of our attention and our focus. We also are very interested in maintaining our very significant role in economic development. We like to be at the table as we're talking to different institutions and industries that are interested in coming to the area. We also are very concerned about streamlining and increasing the efficiencies that our students experience when they're coming to campus. We want to make sure that they can get the education as quickly as they can and can get into the workforce or transfer as quickly as possible.
And then let me ask a couple specific questions that have come up for your institutions. Dr. Sartarelli, one of the first decisions you made, public decisions you made when you started, which I thought was interesting, was to come out and permanently reinstate the track and field programs. And that had been in flux since the end of last year when recommendations came out for financial reasons and facilities reasons to possibly cut them. Then they got a reprieve and supporters came out. Those financial and facility issues are still kind of on the table, even though fundraising has started. So I'm kind of curious, as an insight to how you approach leadership decisions and kind of your style, what were the things that you weighed in making that decision? What were the arguments that rang with you?
The way I operate, I call myself visionary because I like to have a vision to drive us. I like to be very inclusive, get a lot of people around the table. I like to listen to a lot of people. And so it's listen, and listen some more. And then you make a decision. I think in the case of track and field, it was very clear to me that, first of all, this is a sport that's in the fundamental beginnings of human civilization. The first Olympics was not football, was not soccer, was track and field in Greece, a few hundred years before Christ. And so I think for us it was important to reinstate a great program, a diverse program. And the other thing that also made the decision easier is that once the challenge was given by my predecessor to fans and supporters and parents to come up with some money, they did. And we had more than 700 participants helping that process. So I felt that there was very strong support in the community. And I can tell you, I've gone from restaurants to different places in town, and every person I meet, or a lot of people I meet, are very supportive of the decision. We have some challenges ahead of us, but we'll figure out a way to cope with those challenges, find the money to renovate the track, and move forward.
Dr. Lee, we've it's been mentioned a couple times, but the Fine Arts Center is something that you guys are working on this year, and I'm sure consuming a good deal of your attention right now. So it's got a strong response already. But one of the things, and we'll talk more about this later, that we want to address is kind of how do you balance that your attention, resources, and focus between classroom instruction and other outside economic development projects. So for CFCC, this question has come up, and you guys have had to talk a lot more about performer contracts and how you're operating it in a way that a private venue, such as the Durham Performing Arts Center, wouldn't have to answer, because you guys are a school running a performance venue. So could you just address that, like essentially, why does a community college have a performing arts center?
Well, I think it's important to note that the Humanities and Fine Arts Center that will be opening in October is first and foremost an instructional facility. We have 3 floors of classrooms, studios. We have areas now for the community members, whether you're a college transfer student or whether you are just trying to enhance your artistic skills, to do pottery, to do painting, to do drawing, to take religious classes, to take philosophy classes, to take foreign language classes. Not to mention that now that we have this stage, we have a place where we have people who want to be involved in the performing arts, which is certainly an area that has been big in our industry, in our area. And it's not just people who want to act, although I'm very impressed by people who like to be in front of large groups of people. It's more than that. It's, we need people who can help build sets. We need carpenters. We need people who can do welding to help make sure the sets stay in place when they're supposed to. We need people who can do costuming and makeup. And these are going to be our students. Our students are going to have some opportunities, many opportunities, to be working in this facility. And not just our students, but UNCW students. We have many internships already that we have in place. So the decisions to have a theater on a community college were actually made before my time, but I herald them. I think they were good decisions, and very excited to be a part of the process, and very excited to see what it's going to do for our community. I think it's going to be huge. Already we're seeing it is huge.
Do we want to take a break and take some questions from the audience?
When you send in your questions, make sure you include your name and table number. I'll ask a couple of them that we already had. One question was, what job or specific experience best prepared you for your position today?
You want me to take it? I think after 35 years now of working life, so to speak, even though I consider going through Michigan State for my MBA, my PhD, also working, so to speak, I think there's 5 things that define, and I've learned a lot in terms of learning, leadership learnings. One, you have to, whatever you do, you have to work hard. There's some people, and I make sure that I tell my students, if you believe that by not working hard you're going to succeed, forget that idea. Not going to happen. So work hard is important. Second thing, it's very important, the way I see it, is you have to have very good emotional intelligence, so to speak, not just IQ, but also emotional intelligence. Third one, very related to that, is you've got to be able to have developed interpersonal skills. Leadership is all about leading people, not machines, not widgets, not computers. It's leading people. If you don't like people, don't get into leadership positions. You go do something else, right? That's fine. The fourth element there is you've got to be, as a leader, you have to envision the future. You've got to think about the future state. If you want to become a leader of any institution or any organization and you say, well, I'm going to hang on and, collect the money and go home and enjoy it, not going to happen. So I think that is fundamental, that you have to be willing to do that. And the final one is you have to have a passion for it, for working with people, leading people. And there's something else. Eisenhower, the great president and great general, had a statement on leadership that was very interesting that guides me in many respects. It says, to lead people is to get people to do things for you as if they're doing for themselves. When you think about it now, it's, well, that's coming from a general, right, from a military mind. That's exactly what you have to do all the time, even in the corporate world or in academia, is how to convince people, how to spend time convincing them, persuading them, and not imposing. Command and control is gone. How do you do that in a democratic, participative environment like the university is, shared governance environment? So you have to talk a lot. You have to involve a lot of people. And it is amazing the power of talking and the power of thank you. Those two things are very important. Talk to people, try to persuade them, listen to them a lot, and then thank them for whatever good they do or have done that particular day, and it's just monumentally effective. So I think I've learned some of those lessons, and I'm using some of those lessons to help me guide me through UNCW, which is not an easy place. I can tell you it's a wonderful place, but it's a place that's going to require a lot of focus, a lot of work with a lot of people to get us in the right direction.
That's an interesting question. And I don't know if I can say there's one particular job that I've had. I spent quite a bit of time in the corporate world before I came back to the higher education world. And I loved being in the corporate world, and I learned an awful lot about it. It was a small business, and we stayed a small business intentionally. So as I've been involved in the economic development conversations, I've been certainly able to tap into those experiences. Being in higher education, if you've not had an opportunity to teach, you are missing out on something really amazing. And to be able to be in a room and watch somebody take in something you're saying is a life-changing experience. And then to be on the administrative side where I can make sure that the faculty and staff have the resources they need and then get out of the way is just as exciting. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for me to have taken some things from each of the different careers that I've had or different jobs that I've had, and they've all combined very well to where I am today.
Since you guys have both had backgrounds in the private sector, does coming from the business world help you to better run your campuses as a business? And then do you ever face concern from those purely from academia that you're running it too much like a business?
They've never said anything to
Well,
me.
okay.
But for me personally, yes, it's been a huge advantage having that background.
For me too, even though it's very different from a business, at least the business I worked with. The pace is different, so you have to adapt and try to change some of that. And by the way, I agree with the speaker before. We hate change. Nobody likes change unless you have it good. If you have it good, if you don't have it good, then you might want change. But if you have a nice gig going for you, you don't want to change ever. But going back to what I'm saying here is that I think at the end of the day, I think it's all about people, to be able to get involved with people, motivate them. The demands on us as a leadership position is a little different. You have a lot what I call rigidity in the system. In business, you hire and quote unquote and dismiss, and I'm not using the word fire here, but dismiss. In academia, that doesn't work that way. So it forces us as a leader to be a lot more, you have to listen a lot more, the way I see it. Now, it didn't mean that in corporate I didn't listen a lot. I listened a lot. I was managed 50 countries, all kinds of different cultures, economies, etc. So I was listening a lot too. But in academia, you have to listen even more, a lot of listening. But you also have to make movements. You have to make decisions. You have to bring people together. And I work with my cabinet in subsets so that they kind of provide me we discuss it, and then eventually we make a decision, we go forward. So it's different. It's very different. It's exciting in the sense that you can still move an organization forward, even though you've got a few more impediments.
Next question is Paul, table 42. We'll get to your microphone.
All right. Yes, Dr. Sartarelli, you've spoken about university and business relations, improving those relations. How do you see this playing out in Wilmington, and what should Wilmington expect to see from closer relations with the university?
Yes, I'm an extremely strong proponent of economic development, obviously. We, both UNCW and Cape Fear, should be magnets to attract investment in this area. And good companies will be looking for places where you have well-trained, well-developed personnel to work for you. And so, for example, last night, or yesterday, in fact, we we got a grant from a particular company of significance to help us develop some of our students even more in clinical research, for instance. And this area is becoming a clinical research base. Multiple companies. In fact, in my home last night, when I asked them how many people work for CROs, I had probably 20 hands up. So it's terrific. So that's the type of role that the university can play. And but going beyond that, there's 5 levels of economic development that normally people talk about. One is human resources, natural resources. And so we're not going to deal with that one. Second one is human capacity, human resources. How do you, and we're all about, both of our schools are about developing human capability and developing capacity. Third one is capital generation. Well, we're not, neither one of our companies are very good at that. Private equities are much better at that, and banks and so on and so forth. The fourth one is very important, too, technology. We have a Center for Innovation Technology of Entrepreneurship now that Ron Browder is running, and it's terrific. You go there, there's so much vibrancy, so many students participating, young men and women wanting to start up their business with ideas. It's just exciting. And the fifth one that we play a role in is how do we inform legislators, how do we inform business people about the economy? How do we provide more information so that their decision-making is a little more rational rather than just winging it? So I think on those 5 things, I think we are very much in the business of developing human resources and creating great, talented young men and women that can join the workforce. And the fourth one I refer to a lot is the question of technology. We have, I think, we have generated about 7 or 8 patents. Now we're encouraging our professors. If you have a great idea and something that's worth pursuing it, let's make sure that we patent it, or if it is a computer program, we have copyrighted. And so I think all of that stuff, it's creating a level of entrepreneurship desire on campus that's very positive. The CIE now, and I didn't realize that before, but when I started a similar process at West Virginia University, out of 20 people, we'd get 1 female. At this university, of the people that go to the CIE to participate in these programs, more than 50% are female, which bodes well for us. So I think I'm very excited on how we can play a role to accelerate economic development on those 2 fronts, developing human capital and also technology.
And, I asked Dr. Lee earlier about that balance between economic development type work and inside classroom resources. And since you just kind of referenced the CIE and the growing commercialization and patents push from the professors. So same kind of question for you then, Dr. Sartarelli. How do you balance the focus on those types of activities versus just traditional classroom instruction?
I think UNC has had a tradition, in fact, that's what I hear and that's what I'm seeing, of applied learning. And so a lot of our professors are engaged with undergraduates doing research. I've been to the CREST, our CMS, the Center for Marine Science, and you see a lot of, not just instructional, theoretical teaching, but a lot of doing it together in the labs. And so I don't see too much of a disconnect there. I see great universities around the world. Our university can do both. You are not only able to deliver great instruction in the classroom, but also you pursue research where it matters a lot. For example, our mission, we're changing our mission now, it's getting approved, et cetera. But our mission is going to be a very simple one. We want to do great instruction and also great research. And research in those areas where we have the expertise, we have the professors, we the researchers, and also where there are needs in the state. So you're going to see things come in the next few years with address those 2 things. Do we have the expertise inside? Can we develop it? And is there a need in the state? We should not be developing things that there's no need in the state. I'm a taxpayer. I'm very conscientious of that. We should not be doing that. We should be doing things which are useful for North Carolina, for Wilmington, and for the southeastern region. I don't see too much of a difficulty there. It will take some adjusting. Because you may be, for example, if I'm a professor that I spend all my time in the classroom and I love doing it, I want that professor to continue doing that. And so some are going to be doing both, some are not. Some are going to be more focused on the research side. In CMS, the Center for Marine Science, we have some professors who are mostly researchers. They're doing research most of their time. So I don't see too much as a problem.
Excuse me. And Dr. Lee, where do you see the community college's role in economic development? Do you think it's meeting that role now, or what are some changes you want to implement?
The community college role in economic development is a vital partnership. We have historically always been a part of the economic development opportunities in Wilmington, whether it was GE, whether it was Verizon, whether it's Acme, whether it's Vertex, and many of these smaller companies as well. All of our new programs, we have 55 vocational technical programs, maybe even a couple more at this point. They are all here because there was a very specific need in our community for them to be here. Every program has an advisory committee that's made up of local business people in that industry. They meet at least once a year, and then we tweak that program based on the needs in our community. We are very, very committed to being sure that everything that we're doing is supporting our community right here in Pender and New Hanover counties.
Next question is Karen, table 38.
Karen Barnhill, Cameron School of Business at UNCW. And my question is, what is the biggest challenge in higher education between now and 2020, and how will each of your institutions address it?
I can do it. No, go ahead.
There's certainly, for the community college, there's a lot of challenges. One is that despite our wonderfully low tuition, it is still very much out of reach for many of our students. And we need to be sure that we do not lose the opportunities for people to come to the community college. We also are looking at the way that the federal government and the federal financial aid has their place in the community college, again, going back to tuition and making it something that's affordable. And I think also the way the student experiences the community college is getting ready to change significantly. We want students to be able to come in and take a class and then throughout their careers build upon what they've been taking. We're calling them stackable credentials. And so you constantly are learning. You all know in your industries you constantly learn. There's constantly things that you have to keep up with. And so as a community organization and institution, we want to be sure that we are providing opportunities for people to always come back and get what they need to continue to grow in their industry.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the overall higher education in America today, what you do find is the states in general, and I'm not talking about North Carolina specifically, the states in general have retrenched that common ground that used to, consensus that used to exist, that higher public education was important, is it's somewhat broken. And so a lot of states are retrenched. You saw the case in Wisconsin where they decided to take out $300 million from their budget for the system. North Carolina has been good in that respect. We have kept supporting it. There's been, every year we have challenges. But we're basically, the support we get from the state is on the basis of student credit hours. So if you deliver a student credit hour, you get continued support. Now, some states have given up on that formula altogether. They said, look, I can afford $150 million a year of support or 35, and that's what I'm going to give you. So that is, can we ever regain that, quote unquote, that consensus? I'm not sure. Now, the consequence of that is twofold. One, the states have diminished their support, and the students have taken on huge debt. And so today in the total United States, students owe $1.3 trillion. Now, think of this, just to give you context. The total economy of this country is $17 trillion, 17 trillion. 1.3 are student debt. It's huge. It's almost 10% of the economy. So that's a real problem. And if I'm graduating, and I'm graduating with $34,000 or $50,000, that's a real challenge. So if you're trying to get married or get a profession and everything else, plus you have to pay your debt. So I think that is something that every politician, all of us, should be talking about all the time. Things that we can do short term. I want to make sure that we become more efficient as an organization so that I don't have to raise tuitions as fast or as high, because that's very important. And so one of the first things I did was ask my CFO as I came in, let's take a look at all the things we buy and do a little procurement exercise here. Do a Walmart approach here. So look, we buy a lot of stuff from a lot of people. I want you guys to continue supporting me, providing me all those goods and services, but for lower prices. Because if you don't do that, everyone is doing that to us, right? And so you've got to find efficiency within your university or the institution so that you can be a lot more parsimonious on your tuition raises. In addition to that, we have to continue working with the state legislature, because that's where it resides, and impressing upon them the importance of funding higher education and publicly. Those two things are fundamental, and we do that on a daily basis. By the way, we're still waiting. I think we're still waiting for the budget, right? It's coming through, but it's almost there. Anyway.
No breaking tweets yet, so I think so.
No?
But speaking of the budget, I mean, that should be coming out any day. They say they're getting closer to negotiations. They don't want to extend it again. I mean, how do you guys think the institutions are going to fare this year? Is there anything you're keeping your fingers crossed on, or any projects you're hoping get included?
Well, we're very concerned about the tuition. There's quite a bit of chatter about the tuition being increased, and very concerned again about the affordability of the community college education. We also, unlike the universities, we don't set our tuition rates. The legislature does that. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. We also do not get funding in the summer, but many of our vocational technical programs are year-round programs, so we are hoping to get year-round funding. That would make our jobs a lot easier as we manage our budget. And we're also watching the bond carefully.
You mentioned the bond. What would be some specific things in the bond that would help both campuses?
Right. On the bond side, we have a major project, because one of the growth areas for us is health. So our College of Health and Human Services is in need of more support and more room, in fact. And so we have a major project in that bond. It's been ranked number 4 in the House list, and was also on the Senate list. And so if we go for a bond, hopefully early next year, we're going to be fighting very hard to see if we can get that. That's going to be very important for us. There's another component that people don't talk about, and that is, renovation, maintenance. And so that is an area that's been not well funded and continues not to be well funded, because buildings, they have a tendency, like we all know in our homes, is that they have a tendency to age. And so they have to be fixed, and they have to be renovated. And so that's something else that we have not yet addressed, and we're going to have to find a way to address it.
Right, and just for background, the bond is the NC Connect bond that the governor's been pushing in terms of infrastructure and transportation projects around the state, but has met some resistance in the legislature. So Dr. Lee, are there specific projects?
Very similar. We're looking at repairs and renovations, and we have also some deferred maintenance that we would like to put that money towards.
Okay. Another question?
Question from Geneva, table 49.
Dr. Sartarelli, I am very concerned about the liberal arts program in our university system. So my question to you is, how do you plan to balance the program of liberal arts and business at UNCW?
I have been asked that question many times. I'm a strong believer that liberal arts are fundamental to a university, and we're going to continue supporting it, as we should. And I don't see, liberal arts also is a good preparation for life. And I keep telling this story because one of our best sales reps that I met at Eli Lilly, when I worked for Lilly, was a history major. And more recently, when I was at West Virginia University, one of our biggest donors was a history major. So, I think liberal arts, all the way the social sciences, the humanities, and by the way, I speak 3 languages because I love languages, and I read a lot of books because I love history. And so I'm very supportive of liberal arts. I think it's fundamental, it's important to have, and we'll continue having it. But at the same time, we want to make sure, and that is, we have to be judicious inside, that I don't want to be creating any courses that there's no applicability out there. 40 years ago, maybe we could do that because people didn't have to take on loans to pay for their education. But today, if you are getting someone who's paying for their education, and you're creating, and I'm not saying that we are, but sometimes people do, create programs that are not going to lead anywhere, I don't think that's good either. So we want to make sure that we provide a great base, a good foundation for our students, and liberal arts fits that. And then we also have the opportunity to grow professional schools. So we have three very successful, at least two, very successful professional schools, the business school as well as the nursing school. Nursing school is a very successful program, as you know. We're also going online. We've got more than 800 students on it now. We could go to 1,500 students. It's a great program. And so I think it's great universities can do both. They can do both, have a strong liberal arts program, as well as have some professional schools that lead more towards specialization and jobs and so on and so forth.
As part of the strategic plan that you're working on, are you looking at degree programs?
I'm sorry?
As part of the strategic plan that you're looking at in your first year at the university, are you looking at specific degree programs?
We are. We're looking at several programs, and, you know, it's one of them that's very exciting, which I think we should spend time on. And Dr. Ron Vader is here, and we talked a lot about him, also Dr. Aswani Valetti, my chair, my dean for the College of Arts and Science. There's tremendous need in the marketplace for computer programming, for software development, and for coding. In fact, recently there was an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about why this person does not hire computer science graduates. No, I'm all for computer science. I think computer science is very important. But there's the difference between computer science where you develop new operating systems for a machine and computer science where you're developing or using sometimes even canned programs to be more effective, to develop, to find or glean insights from the data, the big data. I think they're very important. This is an area that we're very interested in, is business analytics or big data analytics. It's a very exciting area that we're starting to talk about very much, and I would like to have it, a very robust, I can tell you, if we have a robust program that prepares students and give them a little dose, a little taste for coding, these kids are going to get jobs like there's no tomorrow. There's a need. We are literally importing people from overseas to come to this country to do coding. When I was at J&J, we had a whole building of nationals from other countries coming to this country to do coding. These jobs pay well. It's exciting. It's not for everyone, but for those people who like it, why not? Right? So let's not give up on that well-paying opportunity by not developing the program. So that's one of the programs we're thinking about.
Dr. Levy, you thought about any curriculum changes?
We spend a lot of time every year talking about curriculum changes and looking at new programs, and I'm not sure, now that I'm not as intimately involved in that area, what is on the table with the curriculum committee, looking out at them, and they're kind of nodding. So you will be hearing some things. We had 2 new programs this year, our bacon and pastry program, which I'm personally thrilled about. I'll probably weigh 300 pounds by the time I retire. They were making eclairs yesterday. I was very disappointed I didn't get to taste one. And we also started an interpretive education program, which is a sign language program. And we have found that there's a huge need for that in this community in the areas of law and medicine and education. And the response for both of those programs has been very strong.
You guys had a pretty big spike in enrollment when the economy had its downturn. I mean, in the recent years, what's been the strongest response for the types of training, job retraining people have done?
It truly, the community college tends to do very, very well when the economy is doing very, very poorly. So we had a huge increase in demand, and our faculty and staff were absolutely amazing in meeting that demand. We also had less resources to meet the demand, and yet they were there. They worked harder and put in a lot more hours to make sure that we could do what we needed to do for our community. I would say all of the programs were very successful, but in particular, some of the programs, carpentry, truck driving, public service, the health sciences were probably the most popular.
Okay. We can take another question from the audience.
Table 60, Liz.
Hi, Liz Marion with Elite Innovations, also a UNCW alum. My question is a challenge that's facing our students, including my graduating class of '09, in that we can't keep our talent that we educate in Wilmington. So the question is, how can the business community here work with the educational institutions to keep our talent in town? and provide a better community and better business community?
Yeah, let me take that, at least from our perspective. I think it's a very good question, very important to keep our talents here. And one suggestion we made yesterday, in fact, or the day before, we visited the city council, and we were talking about, I was talking about one-stop shopping for permitting businesses. I think the city of Wilmington should have a one-stop shop where you could go in and say, look, I'll deliver a permit for you to start up your business in 15 days, 20 days, 30 days. Environmental, health, everything in one location, so you don't have to, be looking for permits all over the city. I think we should have something like that. Maybe we already have. I don't think so, but I think we should. And then we should put up a sign on I-40 that said, look, we are really open for business. Now, I lived in Singapore, and I could go in, show my American driver's license, get a new picture, and get out of there with a driver's license in my hand in 15 minutes. Singapore prides themselves in being able to approve new businesses within 10 days. So I think we've got to get our, quote-unquote, our folks to start thinking along those lines. You want to become really business sensitive? Let's contribute to business. Let's make it easier for people to start a business. And why do I say that? I say that because in the past 40 years, if you look from 1980 to now, 1975, the number of new businesses in this country has dropped almost 40%, including North Carolina. So what happens, in also not that, but it's dropping in that group of people, 25 to 34-year-olds. The 25 to 30-year-olds are not willing to risk anymore. They become risk averse. They've become timid. I can tell you that does not bode well. Why does it not bode well? Because 70 to 80% of the new jobs in this country are created by small businesses. If you have a dearth in the creation of small businesses, the economy will suffer. You won't be able to grow more than 2%, 1.5%. So I think we need a rejuvenation, a renaissance of new business in this country. And why not start in Wilmington, right?
Cape Fear Community College has been in existence since 1958, and the alumni from our college tend to stay in our community. They come to school and they stay. I think part of the challenge that we have is to make sure that as they want to continue on to get degrees at a four-year university, that is a viable option, that we make that as easy as possible, because we know that's what a lot of the jobs are requiring, are the four-year degrees as well as the hands-on experience that we offer. And I agree with Zita that we want to be sure that we're all in conversation together. There's a lot of times when we have a perceived need, but it may be a very different need from what the business community actually has. And we have people that are out there. We have people that are trying to have conversations. We need to be sure we have everybody at the table.
Yeah, I think Liz had a good question, because you guys get asked all the time what you can do for the business community. That's just selfish, right? So what do you see from the city, from the county, from the business community, as you're looking at your goals? I mean, what is it that you think specifically you would ask of them in order to grow your programs?
Well, for
I mean,
us,
they're right there if you want to address them directly.
For us, we have a wonderful relationship with the elected officials in this community in Pender and in New Hanover County, and they've been very, very supportive. As well as many of the business leaders here have all been wonderful to support our students, support our programs. I've never had anybody say no to me. I think my greatest challenge, and one of the things that I would ask of all of you, is there is still, for some odd reason to me, unfathomable to me, a stigma against the community college. The other day I heard someone speak about higher education, and they were not even including the community college. So it's important that all of us really value the skills and the training that these students are receiving, and realize that it is just as good as any other place that they would go.
Allow me to make a plug for community colleges, because 70% of the population of this country, of 320 million people, are non-college educated. 70% of us are non-college educated. And there's tremendous amount of need for people that do not want to pursue college. They want to just go and do work. And so one of the great countries in the world today in terms of economy is Germany. Germany has a very, very strong community college system / vocational schools. And so they have been able to maintain their industrial base, their manufacturing base, based on quality. So what you produce in Germany is sold all over the world. You go to China, the only cars that sell in China significantly, in addition to Buick, is Mercedes and so on and so forth. And so community college can play a very important role. I want to have as many students come to my college as possible, and I want to work very closely with Amanda to get as many of our students to come to my college. But some students may want to just to do 2 years, and they want to do 2 years, get a profession, go out there. Now, how many of you have been looking for a plumber that you can rely on, or electrician, or whatever, right? It is very tough to find. I lived in New Jersey for many years. You would set up a meeting with a plumber. He would never show up. When he showed up, it was like a month later, and it cost a ton of money. And so there's tremendous need in the community for professionals that earn a good living and can be trained. And this is where community college fits in beautifully. For industry, even more so. Manufacturing, very important. You know, you go to any manufacturing plant, you're going to find a few jobs for engineers, for accountants, for financial people. And then in the line, you're going to find hundreds of operators running the machines, and they're community college educated. So I think this is really not a part. This is all together. It's part of one symbiotically together.
Another question?
Next question is Sean Olson from Cloudwell.
Yeah, a lot of the large campuses throughout the country have really strong innovation centers and technology campuses that are tied to them, and I know UNCW is working to grow that as well as the community college. But my question is there a way that the community college and the university can work together to do that? And what do we see the vision of that in the next 3 to 5 years here in Wilmington?
Well, I think you would be surprised at how much UNCW and Cape Fear Community College already collaborate. Not only do we share faculty, which we share quite a bit, because if you take a college transfer class with us, often it's the exact same faculty that teach at UNCW and vice versa. That you also are seeing a lot of collaboration because the people who learn the theory also need the people who do the hands-on, exactly like what we were just talking about, the manufacturing. What maybe we haven't seen in the past that I think would be really exciting to see as a community is as new things are happening, as new industries are coming into town, for there to be a very concentrated effort for both of us to be involved and both of us to be working together. Because we do know it's going to take a lot of different types of people and education levels to pull off some of these big things.
One of the things that we're thinking about along those lines is to develop a business plan competition. And I would like to develop one at the collegiate level, so community college and us, together with Cape Fear, Brunswick, Coastal Carolina, and so on and so forth, and many others, and develop a program where we could reward the best business ideas or projects and reward them with $10,000 at the end of the process with lots of judges. We're going to invite the business community to be judges, to be participants in that process. I think And now we could also do that with the high schools. And I did that at West Virginia University with the high schools. As juniors and seniors in high school, you cannot imagine the level of excitement. So we planted, we had people working with us in 36 high schools in the state, and then we eventually had the whole program for the whole state and selecting the best ideas, et cetera, and then finance them and support them. Now we have 2 incubators, so that if we pick the final 3 every year, we could literally take them to the incubators at CIE or the Center for Marine Science and have them there in the incubator for 6 months to a year to see whether that program or that project bears fruit. You also have an incubator, and so we have so much opportunity in this area. And I think we should be recognized tomorrow as the entrepreneurial side of North Carolina. Not just the beautiful beach, but also the entrepreneurial side of North Carolina. And why not? And why not? But I think we have to develop the taste, the zest in young men and women for ideas, for projects, for being their own bosses. That takes time, but somewhere, we have to start somewhere. And I think this is the time to start.
When you're talking about how we're seen by the rest of the state, for UNCW, what do you foresee its identity being in the UNC system? Do you think it should continue to grow and have a larger identity? Do you think it should concentrate on just being a really strong regional university? Where do you kind of see it down the road?
I like to be a true university. And for me, a true university offers the whole panoply of options. Great undergraduate programs, great master's programs, and great PhD programs. We have 2 PhD programs now. We're working a few more that meets the needs of the state. So I'm not stuck to, oh, well, we're going to keep it, and I know that you know a lot about the system. So the system has a tendency to, okay, we've got 2 flagships here in Chapel Hill and NC State, and the rest have to fend for themselves. It shouldn't be that way, okay? So if we have talents in some areas here, we should be allowed to develop it. For example, we have a great department of psychology, one of the best, just top notch. Well, I want to develop that department as much as we can. Provide them more support, developing more. Computer science is very strong. Chemistry is very strong. Accounting is very strong. I want to say finance too because she's here, so I've got to say finance too. And so there's several major programs that we're very strong at. And so I hope the system up there in Raleigh allows us to grow appropriately in line and in function of what the state needs. You know, we're not going to be creating things that the state does not need. We should not do that. But at the same time, let me go back to and finalize a question that was asked before. I think I should update you. In this state, about 95,000 high school graduates graduate every year. We had been growing that number to about 5% per year for several years. It's no longer growing. It's flat now. In fact, it may even decline. It's going to go back up. So both Amanda and I, we're going to be faced with some challenges here. I have a challenge from a state standpoint, is that the state does not allow me to have more than 18% of my students, freshmen in the fall, from out of state. And so I have a flat demand, so to speak, and so that's going to be a challenge for us as we go forward. Now that flat demand is not just affecting me, it's going to affect her too, because she also gets a lot of students from high schools, and you don't have as many graduates as we used to have. When you look at the whole country, the Northeast is dropping significantly, the number of high school graduates. Midwest is also dropping. The Southeast was growing, including North Carolina. It's still growing. South Carolina is, Georgia is, Florida. The central states, Texas, Oklahoma, is still growing. California is dropping significantly. So the country is going through very different dynamics here. And the expectation is that by 2021, the number of high school graduates will grow from 95,000 a year to about 110,000 with a different mix. Whites will be flat. Hispanics and African Americans are going to pick up the slack. So we're also faced with some demographic change that's going to happen in the state, throughout the country, but in the state. So we have to be prepared for that too. I wanted to complement that because we talked about just a little bit about that before, just to give you a few for the size of the opportunity and also the size of the challenge.
How about the community college system? Are there changes coming in through their pipeline that's going to affect your long-term vision?
Can I go back and answer the first question first?
Sure.
So Cape Fear Community College is the 5th or 6th largest community college in the state based on enrollment. But I want you to know that your community college has one of the best reputations in the state for the way that we service our needs of the community and the student satisfaction and student placements after graduation. I want that to continue, but what I want to be particularly strong about our school is there's 58 of us, I want the other 57 to come to us and look to us for how to do things. I want us to be the best practices. So it means that we're going to try some things that y'all are going to think, oh my goodness, what are they thinking? And we'll probably come to the same conclusion. But it also means that we're going to try some things that are going to be very innovative, and it's going to be, I hope, just something that will take off nationally maybe, that will make things even better for our students that come to Cape Fear and any community college. So now, your other question. Changes down the pipeline?
Well, first tell us what some of those things are going to be.
Some of the out-of-the-box things? Well,
They're in the box still.
I think the main thing that we're looking at right now is efficiencies. We have been wonderfully strong at establishing some really good ruts and some really good practices that we are very, very comfortable with. We talked about change earlier. And we are trying to find out ways that we can make it much easier for a student when they come on campus to get into their classes, to get the skills, and then get out of here. As much as we love having them on campus, that's really not where they belong. They belong someplace else. And we want to do our part to make sure that process happens as efficiently as possible. So you'll start seeing some changes in the way people apply, the way people get their financial aid and their scholarships, and also the way they take their classes.
Okay. And any changes that are going to be impacted because of the state system?
And sure, I mean, we're looking at the same thing. Now that everybody is starting to get back to work, we're going to start seeing some declines in our enrollment. Nationally, you're already seeing community colleges have declines. It gives us a chance to pause. We have been working very, very hard for a long time, and it gives us a chance to kind of recalibrate a little bit and readjust. And it's going to also give us a chance to again, look at funding and many, many things that we have just been too busy to really absorb. And Raleigh is the place where all those decisions are made. So we will certainly be going up and down 40 to be sure that we have a voice in those decisions.
Vicki, could let me give you a couple of things that might get you guys excited. Some of you know or may not know, but we are already distinctive in the state in some areas, obviously marine biology. But we have the third best non-fiction creative writing in the country. The top one has always been Iowa, and in non-fiction, we're the third best in the country. That's exciting. We have some great, and in fact, you probably know Clyde Edgerton, one of our novelists. He's on his, 10th novel or so, just terrific. And a great professor in the classroom, too. Chemistry is very strong, and so we have several programs that are very distinctive and very successful. Accounting is very strong. In 2012, we had the third best CPA passing rate in the state after Wake Forest, Chapel Hill, and we were third. And just below us was NC State. I'm not competing on that necessarily, but you know what? If my students are doing well, I want to tout them. I want to talk about them.
We have time for one more question today. It'll come from Eric, table 46.
Good morning. Dr. Sartarelli, you had talked about globalization as being one of the pushes or sort of the strategic initiatives you're looking to go forward with. And the question is that more about attracting foreign talent to come to UNCW, or is it the reverse in terms of building the UNCW brand internationally and perhaps partnering up with other universities overseas? And if so, is there a geographic focus associated with that in terms of pushing towards Asia or South America or Europe, or perhaps all of the above?
Sure. Yes, and I see three elements there. One is study abroad, and we want to continue growing that program. It's a very successful program, one of the best in the state. We send out of our 15,000 students today, about 900 go overseas. Great experience for 2 weeks, for 6 weeks, for 3 months, and so on and so forth. It's great stuff. We also have partnership. We have about 50 or 60 partnership with different universities in the world. We're going to probably not necessarily prune that list, but look at that list to see whether they're accruing value to us and vice versa. And I like to associate ourselves even with better universities overseas, top-notch universities overseas, because it's like playing tennis, and I'm a tennis player. So if you play tennis with people who play better than you, your game goes up. If you play tennis with people who play worse than you, it kind of degrades your game temporarily. So I want to make sure that we really associate ourselves with top-notch universities. And the third element, which is to inbound more students in. And I'll tell you the reason for that, but we have about 350 students now. I think we should have maybe 1,000 or 1,500 students from overseas. And the focus would be on the G20 countries. The G20, as you may know, accounts for about 90% of the world's GDP and about 75% of the world's population. In the Americas would be countries like Canada, like Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. In Africa would be South Africa. In Europe would be the 5 larger European countries: Spain, France, Italy, Germany, the UK, Russia, China, Japan, Korea, Indonesia in Southeast Asia, India in South Asia, and Australia in Oceania. Those are the G20 countries. Terrific countries. They account for a lot of our prosperity, so to speak, and very connected to us one way or the other. So we'd like to do more partnerships and attract more students from those countries. And so we're going to participate more in student fairs overseas. And the Department of State, in fact, runs a program called Education USA, where they go. You may not realize this is, for America, this is really, what do I call it, different, because you don't realize they do it. But you go to these countries like China, Shanghai, you have this gigantic meeting where 10,000 students from China comes, and there are 200 universities from all over the world, 50 or so from the US, talking to these students. And so to Brazil or to Colombia, to different places. So I think we'd like to attract more. You may say, why? Why have more international students? Because we are right on the ocean, because the States exports almost $40 billion a year, because 9,000 firms in this state exports, and for us to have a more of a greater footprint, I think it's just the way to go, and why not? And I would like to have a firm from North Carolina tomorrow be sitting at the table someday, and across from him or from her, to have someone who had gone to UNCW. I can tell you, it would facilitate the process significantly. We already have a lot of some people out there, but we have to have a lot more. I think that's, and we could do more exchange of students, we could do more research exchanges. So I think it's just to create a more vibrant community, a more diverse classroom experience for our American students as well as for the students come from overseas. Many times these students, when they come from overseas, this is the first time they see a diverse campus. Because they may be coming from Brazil where they have not spent a lot of time with other students. Now they come here, they're going to spend a lot of time with Germans and Russians, etc. I was at the soccer field this past week, Saturday I think, where we beat the University of South Carolina 5-0. Thank you very much. It was a great game. Oh my God, it was an exciting game. And you look at the team, it's the future of us. So we had a Swedish player, some very good American players too, by the way. So we had a Swedish player, we had a gentleman from Colombia, one from 2 other countries, etc. So it's a microcosm of excellence. And these kids, those young men, they play just superb soccer. Now, that is the type of stuff that I'd like to see more at UNCW.
Great, and on that note, we want to say Dr. Lee, Dr. Sartarelli, thank you very much for Educational Morning. We appreciate no quiz at the end. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we've all learned a little bit more about what you guys have in store.
Thank you.
Before we let you go, we wanted to give you a little gift. We always give our speakers some reading material, and it's particularly nice to give a reading assignment to a college president and a university chancellor. So a lot of this discussion has been about the future, and we've heard a lot recently about Elon Musk, who's the founder of Tesla and SpaceX. There's a new book about him, so we thought there'd be some good reading for you as you think about the future. Thank you again, and thank you everyone for attending.